Welcome back to the Sea Files. This morning, as we start another week, this Monday morning, it's a pretty day out here. It's nice. Happy to have all of you with me. And got some news here and some Bible. How's that? Let's start out with some news. Chinese military scientists claim to have achieved a huge breakthrough on laser weapon technology. Now, we've been hearing about laser weapon technology for quite a while now. We know that the U.S. has been developing this technology. That's been all in the news. Now, this was out of censored news. I go to Citizens Free Press. It says the same thing. Chinese military builds infinite laser beam that removes heat. And then a second article that says huge breakthrough in laser weapons. Well, is it Star Wars or Star Trek? I mean, they both had lasers, right? So, using light as a weapon, intensified light. You know what else they use as a weapon? Intensified sound. And intensified sound is a really good way of dispersing crowds that are rioting, the rioters and so forth. You roll up, you intensify sound toward them. There's a machine that'll do that and it disperses them. It's too hard on the ears. They can't stick around when it's just too hard on the ears. And so here we are. We are in the 21st century, folks. We got lasers now. And, the Navy, U.S. Navy's been experimenting with shooting missiles and stuff down with lasers for a number of years now. So now the Chinese claim to have it. Let's see if I can bring up the article. High-energy laser weapons can now operate infinitely thanks to a new cooling system that completely eliminates the buildup of waste heat. The technology could significantly change the face of battle by extending engagement times and increasing range and damage, according to researchers. Chinese military scientists have announced a major breakthrough in laser weapon technology, claiming they have developed a new cooling system that allows high-energy lasers to operate infinitely without any buildup of waste heat, according to scientists at the National University of Defense Technology in Changsha, Hunan Province. The new cooling system completely eliminates the harmful heat that is generated during the operation of high-energy lasers. The issue has been a major technical challenge for laser weapon development. With the new technology, weapons can now generate laser beams for as long as they want without any interruption or degradation in performance. Red alert, armed phasers. If you ever watch Star Trek, you know what that means. That's where we are, I guess, folks. The world keeps marching on with technology. Sometimes that technology is not beneficial to mankind. Sometimes it's designed to make warfare even more efficient. There's something to be said with hand-to-hand combat. It takes someone of more grit to go into hand-to-hand combat than it does to sit and push a button on a ship or on a military base or from an airplane to shoot a laser. You don't see the devastation it causes. It's like dropping an atomic bomb. You see the mushroom cloud, but you don't see the devastation on the ground, right? or these days you don't have to drop them. Two were dropped in Japan, but these days they just shoot them over, and that's them over there. Why are we worried about them over there, right? It's where mankind has gone, and a very dangerous situation. But this could also be used to stop nuclear weapons from coming in and hit. It could be a shield, shooting a laser to hit a nuclear weapon before it destroys a country. That would be a good thing. Anyway, there's your laser technology. Edmund Bundy was arrested in Idaho on outstanding warrant. As I read into it, had to do something with a custody case and his refusal to go to court. Court ordered Bundy to pay $50 million. Who has $50 million laying around in their bank account? Japan refuses to share technology with Saudi Arabia. Japan, the United Kingdom, and Italy are sharing in a next generation fighter jet program. And Saudi Arabia wanted in on the party. The UK and Italy are open to the idea of having Saudi Arabia come in, but Japan says, nope, don't want you. It's called the Global Combat Air Program, which seeks to deliver a highly advanced and exportable combat aircraft by 2035. Aren't we supposed to be in 15-minute cities by 2035? Anyway, it's a significant advance for all three signatories, particularly for Japan, which had historically restricted defense experts and never collaborated on a program of this scale and complexity. Japan's building up because of China. China's kind of pushing Japan's button. Kind of become a threat to Japan, so Japan's stepping up its programs to try and to defend itself against China. This one's kind of funny. Elon Musk challenges Mark Zuckerberg to fight him in Facebook founder's backyard tomorrow. Doesn't that remind you of when you were in school and one kid said to another kid, meet me after school, we're going to fight. It's like two high school kids or junior high kids wanting to go to town on each other after school. Musk offered to go to Meta CEO's home to fight in the yard on Monday. Zuckerberg wrote in his Instagram story that he does not believe Musk is serious about the fight. I don't think you're serious about fighting me after school. I think we can all agree Elon isn't serious and it's time to move on, Zuckerberg wrote. I offered a real date. I offered a real date. I don't know what that means. Dana White offered to make this a legit competition for charity. Now the truth comes out. Elon won't confirm a date, then says he needs surgery, and now asked to do a practice round in my backyard instead. Here's Zuck in Twitter. I think we can all agree Elon isn't serious and it's time to move on. So anyway, okay, just some silliness there. But it just shows Elon he's poking, he keeps poking these guys, you know. He just keeps poking them. I love it. Just keep on poking. Let's see. Millions of U.S. tax dollars still being sent to 27 Chinese labs. Research facilities benefited from $15 million to perform dangerous and cruel animal experiments. Hello, Fauci. Despite fears, COVID leaked from Wuhan. COVID wasn't the real killer. COVID wasn't the big problem. It was the shots. Everybody rushed out to get the shot to protect themselves from COVID. Right from, you jumped from the frying pan to the fire. You ran from the coyote into the bear's cave or the lion's den. It's people. People are starting to wake up to this now, but we need to be more discerning, especially as Christians. It's important to be more discerning than what we have been. There's so much news here this morning. Tons of news. Hawaii wildfires, death toll rises to 55 people. And we talk about lasers, laser technology. And when people mention that they've seen beams come down and create damage, there's a video on YouTube of it. People don't believe them. But there is laser technology. They can be shot from the sky and start fires. Just some food for thought. Oh, and they want to deplete the atmosphere of CO2. That's another one I saw. I mean, just all this nuttiness that's going on. These trees back here, they need CO2. Does nobody understand science anymore? I mean, just basic science. I breathe out CO2, the trees take it in, and then they send out oxygen. I breathe the oxygen. I need the trees need me. It's a symbiotic relationship between us and plant life. And plants breathe in CO2. When you have a lot of CO2, you have a lot of growth. You want to get growth in the Sahara Desert? Create a lot of CO2, put some water in there, and plant it. You'll have the Sahara jungle. Okay? I mean, that's just how it works. All right. Now, along with all of this stuff, I mean, there's so much news here. Let me mention this before we do that. I was going to talk about prophecy for a moment, but look, electric vehicles. Companies are beginning to realize, and it's earlier than I thought they would, that these electric vehicles they're being told to make are not selling. Nobody wants them. Rivian is having problems with their vehicles. Their electric vehicles in China have been exploding just because of the battery overheats or something of that nature. There's problems with electric vehicles here catching fire. And there's the technology, frankly, is not there for electric vehicles, but the government wants to keep forcing and pushing corporations into this electric vehicle nonsense. Internal combustion engines have become extremely efficient over the years. Young folks today don't know or remember the 1960s, 1970s. Yeah, that's when the car population got really heavy. And how much pollution they were throwing out. How much black smoke and blue smoke that was coming out of the tailpipes, creating a lot of smog. And then in the mid-70s, I would say, they began to work through the technology of a catalytic converter and other means to cut down on the pollution coming out of tailpipes. Today they have it to the point to where there's very little extremely small amount of any pollution at all coming out of a tailpipe of a car. Internal combustion gas engines are extremely efficient today, and they don't pollute hardly at all. But we've been fed this lie that carbon dioxide is going to kill us. It's going to kill the planet, the ozone layer, and all of this kind of stuff. We have to have it. And the problem is we're depleting it so much, we're going to start affecting the plant life. You start affecting the plant life, oxygen levels go down, and we start killing the planet that way. It's the opposite of what they're saying. But anyway, let's get on with something I heard on the prophecy front. I heard this a little while back, and I wanted to talk about it, but I never did. Out of Matthew chapter 24, in verse 29, I'm pretty sure this is the verse that they used. It says, immediately after the tribulation of those days shall the sun be darkened, and the moon shall not give her light, and the stars shall fall from heaven, and the powers of the heavens shall be shaken. And it talks about the Son of Man appearing in heaven, and all the tribes of the earth would mourn. In the clouds of heaven with power and great glory he appears. And so somebody came along and associated that with UFOs. Look, folks, there's nothing in Bible prophecy, there's nothing in Matthew 24, Luke 21, or Mark 13 that say anything about UFOs, UAPs, or whatever, unidentified aerial phenomena, or anything of that nature, or an alien invasion. Look, there's no hidden messages in the Bible. The Bible's written plain for people to understand, okay? I don't buy into all this Jonathan Cahn stuff. People are getting wacky when it comes to Bible prophecy and reading things into the scriptures that are simply not there, okay? So what is it talking about when it talks about the sun being darkened and the moon not shining her light and the stars falling from heaven? This is metaphoric, apocalyptic language. If you go back to Genesis chapter 37, I'm pretty sure it's Genesis 37, you go back to Joseph's dream, and Joseph, in his dream, I'm correct, it's Genesis 37. If you just start reading from verse 9 down to about verse 11, you'll see that Joseph had his dream of the sun and the moon and the stars. And it wasn't the literal sun, the literal moon, or literal stars that in the interpretation of it. It was a literal sun, literal moon, literal stars in his dream, but they bowed down before him in obeisance. This associates, in apocalyptic language, these heavenly bodies with the nation of Israel. And the sun is Israel, the moon is Jerusalem, the 11 stars are the 11 tribes. Back in the ancient world, a capital city was called the mother of that nation. And so the moon was being associated in the interpretation with Joseph's mother. The sun being interpreted to be his father, because his father later became Israel, right? God said, your name will now be Israel. And the 11 stars associated with his 11 brothers, who are the tribes of Israel. And so when you get up to Matthew 24, this is how you have to picture it. You have to see it according to the language that the Bible tells you. And so when the sun being darkened, that means that Israel would be darkened. And the moon shall not give her light. Well, Jerusalem gets shut down. It also talks about blood running in the streets of Jerusalem. And the stars would fall from heaven, and the powers of the heavens would be shaken. Now, that's the 12 tribes, and they fall from uh, the heaven of heavens is a reference to the temple. You have the outer court, the inner court, and so forth. So this is all metaphoric language. And this is 70 AD language. When did the temple come down? It came down in AD 70. When were the 12 tribes scattered? They were scattered in AD 70. When did blood run in the streets of Jerusalem? AD 70. When was Israel darkened and Jerusalem destroyed? AD 70. It was fulfilled about 40 years or so after this prophecy was made by Jesus Christ. So this criticism by atheists and others saying, well, the timing statement in the Olivet Discourse, these prophecies by Christ, was that these things would occur in that generation, and it never came true. Therefore, the Bible's not true. Well, you say that because you don't understand apocalyptic language and you don't understand Bible prophecy. Those things were fulfilled in AD 70. And so the vast majority of Christians take these passages as being yet future. But if you'll notice when you're reading through the Olivet Discourse, depending on whether it be Matthew, Luke, or Mark, it doesn't matter which one you're reading, the Lord is constantly saying to his apostles, you will see these things happen. These things will happen during your generation. These things will happen and you will see it. Some of you standing here will see this. He's talking to them and saying that they would see it. So the skeptics are correct when they're looking at the timing statements in the passage. How skeptics can pick up on the timing statements and Christians absolutely, completely miss it is beyond me. But the skeptics got the timing statement right. And were those things fulfilled? Yes, they were. And a lot of it can be proven from the scriptures themselves. The scriptures proclaim, for example, that the entire world was evangelized in the first century. That's in Romans 1:8, Romans 16:26. That's in 1 Timothy 3:16, if you want to write these down and look at them. That's in Colossians 1:6 and Colossians 1:23. The Bible claims that the world was evangelized in the first century. Now, the world meant the Roman Empire. Okay, it didn't mean the tribes in North America or Australia or China or anything of that nature. You have to look at the context and how the terminology is used. Okay? So he talks about their flight. Pray that your flight be not in the winter, that you're not on the roof of your house. Well, nobody's on the roof of their house today. They were back then. The 12 tribes are intact in the Olivet Discourse. If you go to Israel today and ask them what tribe they're from, they cannot tell you. The archives and the records were destroyed in AD 70, and they will never know. I would say there's been a lot of mixing of races in the marriages. There's probably very few pure bloodline of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob any longer today. You're not going to see if you see a future temple, if they do build one, God will destroy it. because it's an insult to God. It's an affront to him. And he will not tolerate that temple going up for very long. Um, some laser will hit it probably, right? Um, but the the physical temple has nothing to do with our future, and it has not. Look, the Apostle Paul is clear on this, and so are the other apostles in the epistles. We are the temple of God now. The church is not a parenthesis between two time periods. Sorry, dispensationalists, you're absolutely wrong on that one. Um, the church is the kingdom of God. And the covenants, the old covenant and new covenant, are both covenants of grace. The covenant of works was in the garden before Adam and Eve fell. That was the covenant of works. Okay? God started the covenant of grace when he killed an animal and clothed Adam and Eve. Okay? So the covenant of grace has been going ever since, but it has changed form. There are sub-covenants within the bigger covenant. The bigger covenant is the covenant of grace. And then there are sub-covenants. There's the covenant, there was a covenant to Adam and Eve concerning um, the head of the serpent being crushed. There was a covenant to Noah. There was a covenant to Moses. There was a covenant to Abraham. Can we go down the list? Right? There were a number of covenants within the covenant. We're now in a covenant of redemption inside of the covenant of grace. But all of it is the covenant of grace. And the old covenant saints came to redemption the same way we do, by believing on the Messiah. And they believed on a future Messiah. We believe on a Messiah that has already accomplished the work of the cross. That's the only difference. And so when you look at the Olivet Discourse, you have to look at what the Lord was addressing. He was addressing the destruction of the temple that was still standing at the point of time that he was speaking these words. And that specific temple that was standing came down approximately 40 years or so after he spoke those words. And that was AD 70. And that fits within the generation. When he says in Matthew 24:34, verily I say unto you, this generation shall not pass till all these things be fulfilled. And so a generation is biblically 40 years. And no, it does not mean race or this race of people. Some people say genos. Well, it doesn't mean that generation, as in that time period. It means that particular race of people. Well, who was dispersed in AD 70? So it doesn't matter which way you go on that, really. It's still fulfilled. So, so trying to get out of it by saying, well, this doesn't mean generation, it means race, won't work. Because that race was slaughtered and then dispersed in AD 70. So there you go. They passed in AD 70. Go to Israel today and ask them what tribe they're from. They can't tell you because it's a lot of this stuff, this 1948 Israel nonsense, this Balfour Declaration and all of that, it's faked. And I mean faked in the sense that it has misled a lot of Christians into believing that that's some super sign that we're in the end times. And many have been deceived by that. And I was for a while as well until I did my research. So, no, there are no signs of the times today. They were all for AD 70, but 63 to 70 time frame. That's when the tribulation and the great tribulation occurred. I believe that Caesar Nero was the man of sin that they were talking about in the book of Revelation. Um, so, what do we have ahead of us today? What we have ahead of us today is continuing uh, superior triumphant march of the church. And the gates of hell is not going to be able to, the gates of hell are, I should say, not going to be able to stand against the power of the church. The church will continue to grow in strength. The church will continue to grow in power. If you look at Daniel's prophecy, he talks about the kingdom of God growing and growing and growing forever. Um, there are many passages we could go to that talk about that. And so what we have to look forward in the future, hopefully we can look at the end of these false predictions out of dispensational premillennialism and get back to a sound eschatology where we understand that God's kingdom will continue to grow stronger forever. You say, but it seems like we're losing the battle now. Yeah, you can't go on what seems like, okay? Um, because it's like a stock market graph. You know, you're up for a little bit, and then you dip a little bit, and then you're up, and then you dip, and then you're up, and you dip. But the trend is upward, and that's what's happening with the church. We have come a long way with the church. We've already come through the Reformation, the, where the soteriology is locked down, and we have that locked down. We've already come through the Nicene creeds and the councils and the seven councils of the churches and so forth, where we've locked down through Scripture, because the theologians had to get together and really figure out Scripture and understand what God was saying. They've locked it down to who God is, the attributes of God. Who was Jesus Christ? Well, he's fully man and fully God, right? And so that was locked down in these councils. And so I think the last thing that has to be locked down for the church now is eschatology, the study of the end times. And so that debate is really getting brewed up. I mean, it's really getting hyped up now. And it might take 100 years. It might take 200 years to really figure that out, because it's a tough study. But I believe that the days of dispensational premillennialism are about over. And it would have reigned from Darby, John Darby, through Schofield, up till today. It's still very popular today, but I don't think it's going to last much longer. Uh, the postmillennialists are coming on stronger. The preterists are coming on stronger. By preterists, I mean what I was just saying, that applies to AD 70, the temple and so forth. Amillennialism, there's aspects of it that are in reality, the fact that we are in the kingdom today, because Christ said his kingdom is not of this world. It's a spiritual kingdom, and that spiritual kingdom is continuing to grow in the world. Look at the revivals and things occurring in Africa, the Middle East, China. There's more Christians in China than anywhere else in the world today. Doesn't matter what the governments are doing. God will bring the governments down when he's ready and replace them with a better one. But the real work is occurring underneath the radar, where Christians are growing and thriving. Thanks for watching. this Monday morning. We'll see you again through the week. Everybody have a wonderful week. I hope it stays nice. There's supposed to be a heat wave rolling through. So anyway, bless you guys. We'll see you next time.